Hey gang, Will here from the Ashland Fly Shop. Today we're out on the upper road talking about single-hand Spey casting. We're looking at a handful of tips that sort of differentiate it from two-hand casting. We've asked our good friend James Millard, operations manager for OPST, to join us, kind of get to some of these questions. And who better to do it than a representative from OPST who's really been at the forefront of this casting since it kind of took over single-hand rods. So we're going to get to it.
All single-hand Spey is just Spey shrunk down. So think about like a Skagit cast, you want to be inside your box. Your box is smaller. There's no real big muscles being used here. This is all my forearm to make that cast. I'm not using my shoulders. I'm not using any big body motions, and that's indicative of Skagit casting just in general. So like with a two-handed cast, I'm still inside the box, right? Still nice and tight inside my box. With a single-handed cast, everything's going to be a little bit closer, a little bit tighter. When I set my anchor is closer to me, right next to me.
So obviously the advantage of single-hand casting, single-hand Spey casting would be, if you had a more compact scenario, you were up against the bank, you had less room, but
we could go stand like right in there and do it, so.
But I also think that, it has an advantage just with bigger flies and being able to get that stuff moving off of smaller rods and stuff is kind of what we're seeing.
That is a good point, and that's a lot of what is attracting our customers to these rods. One of my common questions is, how big of a fly can I cast?
Yeah, right.
How big of a fly can I cast? And a lot of these guys are fishing smallmouth that don't have a fly size to eat anything, and they won't eat anything, but they'll eat any size. We've got guys that are fishing smaller browns that will eat big double gongas and stuff like that. So big flies, wind, sink tips.
And I think that comes back to
Skagit cast in general, but
comes back to large dries too, right? You could equate that with large wind-resistant flies and getting them moving with little or no back cast, but also even
it's just a big fly.
Yeah, it's just a big fly. It's just a big fly to get moving. Sometimes a standard weight forward line is a challenge. So
it is.
Yeah.
This just makes things a little bit easier.
So let's talk a little bit about the different types of casts that you can use with single-hand Spey casting. And so if you're teaching me out on the river for the first time, are you starting people with like a Circle C, Snap T type cast, double Spey type cast?
Yeah, I like to start with just the Snap T because when you get the anchor set right, which is this up and, C's, that's backwards C in the air, it puts your anchor in the perfect spot.
Yeah.
And so it's a really good cast to learn.
Well, that's great. That leads us right into my next question for you, which is hauling versus pinching the line behind the head. That was an interesting thing for me when I first started single-hand Spey casting more. Initially, it was really natural for me to haul, and I had a really difficult time kind of getting that perfect point where you're hauling back into the cast and creating that acceleration. And when I got the tip to really just pinch the line, it really opened it up for me and became clearer. But I think for a lot of people, it's really natural to haul. So what do you think about that?
Well, I think that sometimes the haul is the only way to create enough line speed to do what you're going to do if you have a bigger tip, a bigger fly, wind, which, gosh, that's just about everywhere we go. I drop my hand farther back on the rod and give myself a little bit more leverage that way.
Yeah.
Like I'm really far into the reel. Hauling is going to be your own rhythm.
Yeah.
My rhythm is a little off with hauling because I don't do it a lot. So I only haul in the forward stroke. Some guys will haul here.
Yep.
And then haul into the forward stroke. Yeah. I think the one haul is all you need.
I think that hauling this, and I've always said this in my classes and stuff too, that I do when people come out with their single-hand Skagits and things, single-hand Spey to my casting clinics and stuff, is it's tough, man. It's challenging, like getting going with it. And so I would strongly recommend, pinching the line behind the head, but just knowing that, you can accelerate, with a haul. And that's another aspect of single-hand Spey casting. So just like in two-hand casting in general, you know, the sink tips or floating tips that we put on the front of these things can really greatly influence the cast and stuff. So if you were just kind of getting started with this, you know, OPST makes a really nice range of tips, but you know, if you were going with one or two that really wouldn't affect the cast too much, you know, where do you like to start with like a tip selection off the front of these heads?
Well, anything that's in the T8 range, you know, or 8 grains a foot for the most part.
So around
for
80
Skagit.
grains,
80,
75.
75. Ours 7.5 foot tips or 60 grains, which
Sweet.
is, you know, 8 grains a foot. So it really kind of depends on the weight of the head. But for me, I define, you know, what we're doing with one-handed rods on everything 275 and down, you know. You could put these on 10 weights, 11 weights, 12 weights, but you know, we just don't see a lot of guys doing it.
Yeah.
So everything, all of our heads from 150 up to 275 really like T8, and that translates into, like, you know, the 300 grain heads of like Rio and other companies that are a little bit, you know, they all like that T8. That's all the tip is doing. Your tip is there to, you see all this energy I create. When I do this, I'm creating a lot of energy. That tip's absorbing the energy for us, so we don't blow our anchor, and we make a nice smooth cast.
Yeah, so to wrap up, like you said multiple times, single-hand spey casting, just a more compact form of two-hand casting. All the same moves, all the same cast, really kind of the same learning curve with two-hand casting. And I think we kind of touched on a few little tips that we feel differentiated a little bit, but really a very similar thing, and just a kind of a great way to begin your foray into spey casting. Yeah,
everybody's got a single-handed rod, you know. And so now they've got all kinds of lines out there that will just get you right into the spey game right away. So that's great, you know. That's one of the things I like about it.
Yeah.
I had all these one-handed rods that weren't getting used. My wife was going to make me sell them.
I can't have that.
No.
Well, great, James. Thanks, buddy.
Yeah, appreciate it.
Yeah.